Hello, and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast. My name is Jed, and we are in the bangerist of all bangering books, Sock and Jesus, a Dialogue in Heaven. Last time, we explored the ideas of levels of reality, or levels of causes or meaning or purpose that we engage in as we progress through different stages of development. The first one for most people is at the level of soul, specifically those 5 causes. Somebody asked last time or 2 episodes ago, is this Plato? Where are these causes from? And they're from the book. We are hypothesizing them from the pattern of the logos that we are discovering by reading the book. As we read, we seek to read without interpretation, but also there are other elements involved in reading, looking for puzzles. Now, there are some puzzles that are explicit, like Socrates will say as the character of the book, do this. There are some which are a little bit less explicit, like, for example, Socrates has been mentioning many times all through the book that dreams are the most significant thing we can engage in, so much so that there have been philosophers in the past who reach high stages of development, Plato, Proclus, Damascius, Dionysius, who have gained an understanding of the dialectic, maybe contributed to the study of the dialectic, but have not been able to integrate dream analysis into the system. So it's a high bar to reach. Now, why is he saying it over and over again? It's a question. It's a quest for us to take up. But again, you have to be reading with a certain degree of precision, curiosity, wonder, and without interpretation. For instance, if you have a personal belief that there is no significance in dreams, you'll project that onto the text and you won't find the question that's there to be found. Is that light better? Yeah, let's do that one. Actually, it's a bit too orange. Let's go back to the other one. Not that one. This one. So, one more explicit, one more implicit. There are other questions to do that you have to look for the structure of the book to discover. For example, is there a structure to the way the ideas are explored? Or is there a structure to the thinking of the characters? If you're noticing a structure or pattern in how the dialogue is unfolding or how the book is written, the character or the author, you might be able to therefore notice where there is deviations from that pattern. Deviation from the pattern is a way of discovering a puzzle. And the example that we give, of course, is in video games. You notice there's a pattern. Every time I step on this block, then the painting moves. And then all of a sudden, I step on this block, the painting moves. This block, the next painting moves. That's a terrible one. Okay, I don't know, you move the painting and the door opens, you move the painting and the door opens, and now you're in a room where you move the painting but the door is not opening. There is a break to the pattern. You have to find out what you have to do to the painting to make it movable, to open the door to get to the next room. That kind of idea. When you notice a pattern, when you notice a deviation, you can notice a puzzle. A puzzle that you are being asked to solve. You are an active participant in the reading. Isn't that neat? This, of course, is analogy as well. So you can do that with structure, but you can do it with terms as well. If you notice a pattern where there's a list of terms, like, for instance, a king is to his subjects as a shepherd is to his sheep, then you can notice not deviations in the structure, but terms. Let's say that that analogy has been established in the book, and then Socrates goes on to talk about other things like the king's castle and the king's warriors. Well, he'd probably talk about the lower in order to give you the puzzle about the higher. So he talks about the shepherd's sheepdog and the shepherd's tent. You would have to go ahead and recognize that pattern, recognize the missing terms, add it in. So there are levels, so long as you are an active participant, you are raising your mind to meet the mind of the author or the characters in the book, to gain the benefit that their intelligence is bestowing. Now, in doing that, we discovered that the name of the pattern is essentially the dialectic. The dialectic is the pattern or the map or paradigm of the logos. That allowed us to find puzzles everywhere, even in single paragraphs or sentences. And also gave us a map for how to solve the puzzles. If that's the structure, we can look for the deviations. Isn't that neat? And of course, there are also puzzles that only come to light if you've met the previous puzzles. Excuse me. So, looking for puzzles and applying a structure of thinking or reasoning called the dialectic, the structure of thinking itself, to find the answers. And as such, we're discovering the pattern. And we applied it to causes because we are interested in understanding, why are we here? That's the big one. Socrates has been talking about the only things that we can take with us out of this life is a learning and nurture. So we must be here to learn something. He talked about depending on how well we do in that and how much we abandon that task will result in a good kind of learning and nurture or a negative one if you don't engage in it, which has a consequence on the way that you die, what you participate when you die, and the kind of reincarnation you have. So we want to die well, have the best experiences, and reincarnate in a positive way. He in the text, Socrates talked about how the level of depending on the work you have done to purify your false beliefs about self and reality, to that extent you're able to endure the divine light of being that we all experience upon death. And to the extent you're able to participate in that is the same extent you are participating in intelligence. Because that's what it is. It's intelligence itself. And to that extent, you're able to participate in a greater depth of intelligence based on how well you've purified your false beliefs about self and reality you've picked up in your lifetime. To that extent, you will be a better kind of character. You'll have more ability of soul. And what we've been reflecting on is the ability that not only is it intelligence, but it's also connected with care and benefit. The greater, more empathetic person you'll be, but also the more able you are to enact your desire to benefit or care, to actually bestow good. And what we've also discovered is there's a word for that. The highest kind of intelligible, rational, understandable, knowable benefit, the higher kind of intelligible benefit is providence. Socrates also pointed out, hey, by the way, if you recognize that the purpose of this physical reincarnation, like being a human, is to develop the capacity for ousia and logos, self-reflection and language, so that you can participate in time in an activity called understanding to do two primary functions. Reflect on what is your false image of yourself you're identified with that blocks your higher spiritual journey, and develop a learning and nurturing of the art of understanding that allows you to progress on that upward journey. So a purification and a perfection to do with your idea of self and reality. Now, the way of thinking that develops the false idea of self and reality is belief, the cognitive function of belief. The one that develops your upward movement or anagogic movement is understanding. So if you've recognized that, then upon death, you might decide, hang on a second, I don't want to reincarnate back into planet Earth downward. in order to forget these higher experiences, develop that false belief about self and reality called the pathologos, suffer because of it, because of this ignorance, and roll the dice that perhaps I'll run into a philosopher who's familiar with the dialectic, and perhaps I'll be open and curious to listening to him or her, and perhaps I'll have the courage and integrity to actually play the game, and perhaps I'll learn enough to develop. Otherwise, I'll just be stuck in a cycle of problems, and I'll likely, because of how much injustice there is on planet Earth every second of every day, I'm likely going to be reincarnated into a place where I am suffering injustice in a terrible way, or even doing injustice, which is even worse. Or Hades. In Greek mythology, Hades. If we've recognized that is the lot for human beings, then maybe we won't want to reincarnate downward. We can do what Socrates says is not only escape the chains of problems, but the prison of reincarnation. So reincarnate upwardly to higher dimensions. So all of this is a consequence of our learning and nurture. So what is learning and nurture? Well, the negative is belief and activity, living a life where you are playing out the implications of your beliefs about self and reality. And the true learning is understanding. Now, we use understanding with a capital U, but we also use the Greek word dianoia, because we're not talking about understanding how to do kickflips. We're understanding the nature of self and reality. That's dianoia. So there's our learning, and nurturing is living accordingly. For a soul to be ruled, recognizing there are three aspects, three primary forces of the soul. That which seeks our inwardly, bring towards us our good, our desiring, your belly as a metaphor. That which propels us to move outward in the world, your heart, and your reasoning, which is required to plan, to decide your goals, to reflect. The virtues would be arranging all of those according to the rule of the logos, understanding, while also keeping in mind that the cause of the worst conditions of man is its opposite, belief. So to be ruled by the logos and to be on guard for the pathologos is the virtues. So that's something that you practice. You don't have to be ready to do that. You just do that. Spam. Spam. Hang on a second. There we go. Spam.
But that's funny. It's like the whole business model is like, hey, we can trick the platforms, and then hopefully we can trick people into thinking that these are real people to do like this.
Disgusting. I'm so disgusted. Die mad about it, bitch.
Die mad about it, bitch. I know it's spam because this is how it reads. Hey, mate, I really love your stream. Then you would be a very rare person on this planet. Considering the kind of thing we talk about here. That's what we've been covering, by the way. What sort of work we need to do, or play we need to play, in order to meet the conditions to develop a love of understanding, philo dianoia, the true education that we're here for. I enjoy being part of your fan community. Well, first of all, I don't have much of a community. I don't have fans. I do have a little community. I notice I get about 10 viewers of the live stream recording on YouTube. About 10 people watch on average the Twitch VOD. And then maybe about 5 people will watch the video that I put up. So 25 is pretty good. So yeah, I wouldn't call them fans though. Garbage. Would you mind adding me on Discord? Well, this is what I say to you.
Calm your fucking tits.
Calm your tits.
You piece of shit, there's a robot. You need to flood these platforms with fake people.
All right, so this is the first level of causes that we have been discovering applied to the soul. Now, those 5 causes, which of course, to answer our friend's question, is this Plato's causes? No, it's the Logos' causes. It's our hypotheses based on the structure of all of the things that we've been learning about. As its beginning point, the dialectic. What we've been learning is to perfect our understanding is to reflect on what understanding is. What's the model of understanding? An understanding uses a set of terms or Lego pieces called selfers. And for understanding, they are in pairs. Everything that you've understood is a whole or a part of a whole or a whole of parts. Everything that you've recognized with understanding, you've distinguished it as one thing different from other, or many things, or the same different from the different or the other. Everything you've seen is like something in that it's a thing, but unlike in that it's a unique thing that you're pointing to. So these are terms of pairs of selfers that we use for understanding. The more familiar you are with it, the better you can see through the dialectic. And of course, we have recognized that these things are also guiding the structure of the book, guiding Socrates' thinking within the book. And the most primary terms, the first distinction you make, self and other. What's me and what ain't me? So I'm not feeding my chicken when it's me that's hungry, because the chicken is not me. So using those 2 primary terms, you can arrange them in 4 different ways: self to itself, self to other to other, other to self, giving us the dialectic, 4 pieces. But there has to itself be a higher cause for those 4, giving us a list of 5 terms. We've recognized there are 5 kinds of souls. There are 5 kinds of cognitive functions that we have discovered. There are 5 positive hypotheses in the Parmenides. So, and I like causes because causes seem to be easy to imagine. So different people recognize different causes, but we are using a set of 5 because it seems to be the structure and it seems to make sense. You need the stuff to build a house with, material cause. But not just any material cause, you have to material cause that's receptive. So you could also receptive to being acted upon. So, well, we need concrete. Well, you don't want the concrete that's already below a building as the base of a building. You want the stuff in bags so you can pour them and use them. Receptive material cause. Receptive or material cause. There's an activity that you act on that bricks with called building. There has to be someone doing the building, the builder, and there has to be blueprints, 4 primary causes. But on a higher level, there is the reason you even began to do those things, the first cause, but it also happens to be the final cause. If Billy didn't need a place to live, you wouldn't go ahead and try to find the ideal versions of those 4 causes. And of course, you know the building is done when Billy has a place to live. So, we've recognized that there are, therefore, for each one of those causes, there is its opposite. Because remember, the 2 things we're here to apply our learning and nurture to: removing the false, perfecting the true. A and B. So for each of those causes in their ideal sense, we could look for the sick version, or the pathologos version, the sick logos version. that which is in opposition and takes the place. For instance, people who are not understanding but are thinking in terms of their belief are still thinking, are still reflecting on a model. It just happens to be a terrible one that causes harm. Belief ain't neutral. It's harmful and the cause of our injustice, ignorance, and savagery towards ourselves and others. It's the cause of our problems. Fundamentally, the root cause is the cognitive function of belief. And you could say one step behind that is, well, even prior to that is the image of self. That belief is attached to. Like, therefore you identify with the belief. People say, I am a Christian, I am a Jew, I am, no, that's just a belief. I am a Mormon, no, that's a belief, it's not what you are. So you can find its complementary opposite. We also recognize that you can move horizontally to different sets. Seeing the 5 causes, you can see the 5 cognitive functions that we are evolving through. You can see the 5 levels of reality, maybe. The 5 cognitive, said that one? The 5 classes of soul. But you can also move vertically, and that's what we were doing last time. That's where we are. We recognized that we start the game. So here is on the left is the opposites. But we're looking at the positives. To begin the game, to start the quest, the hero's journey.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
To start the hero's journey.
But I thought this was actually kind of interesting.
And it's actually kind of interesting. You have to be a soul. So we're in the level of soul, that's where we begin. Soul is inhabiting is a mind with those, or a physical body that has those 3 psychic forces: inward desire, outward seeking, reasoning. To arrange those aspects of your soul, not to be seeking your physical desires ruled by your belly, not to be seeking fame and honor, your reputation, to be ruled by your outward seeking, what do other people think of you, but to be ruled by the highest part of the soul, reason. Each of those, and by the way, to desire the good that comes about with reason, to seek the good that comes about by reason, and to use reason to seek its good, because that's the way you reach your highest good. The highest good or pleasure or truth ain't physical, it's in mind. Therefore, this practice, you don't have to be ready to do this, you just do it. The practice of the virtues leads to the soul discovering the good of mind. What most benefits me, my greatest pleasure, my ability to remove my suffering, comes from my use of mind. So the virtues, therefore, to be ruled by the good that your mind seeks, or your reasoning part seeks. What's that? Well, we called it the structure and pattern and terms of thinking that reflect reality. The logos. The logos is the intelligible nature and also the good that mind seeks. Therefore, to begin this game is to arrange your soul, your belly, your heart, and your head, seeking the logos, or to be ruled by the logos. Requires courage because you don't know the logos yet. It's an idea. So you need the word logos, by the way. Very important to have the word logos. To have the idea that there could be an intelligible pattern towards reality that we can arrange ourselves according to that brings about our greatest good. Socrates calls this the movement from loving of learning to philosophy because you might recognize in the physical world patterns. Remember? Reading the text is about looking for patterns. You might notice patterns in the physical world. There is beauty, but it's not just here, it's also over there, and it's also over there, and it's also over there. And by the way, if that person who's beautiful isn't also good, they're less beautiful. Patterns are emerging. If there's patterns, there has to be a blueprint through which the patterns are derived. Even physical patterns, laws of physics. What's the paradigm? Because gravity always works. And if you oppose gravity by throwing the apple up, gravity doesn't change. So these patterns exist independent of the physical world. You're discovering the pattern of reality, that's the logos. To arrange your soul, by the way, politics would therefore be if there are certain patterns and laws of reality and humanity, ways of taking care of the planet, ways of meeting human needs, ways of solving problems, then a just society would have leaders that are aware of that pattern, called the logos, and are making laws and policies in the society and creating institutions to harmonize our way of life as human beings with the pattern of reality. That would be a just world. We're not doing that. We're actually doing the opposite because we haven't yet began our purpose, which begins with being ruled by the logos as a soul. Politicians and regular folk and religious authorities are ruled by belief, which is the exact opposite. It's the cause of harm and ignorance. Belief. It's false, it's harmful, but you can scam people if you get people to believe what's bad is actually good. It's religion, it's politics, that's marketing, that's capitalism. To manipulate people to act against the good so you can exploit them for profit and fame through manipulating them through belief. So our goal therefore is to start working on courage, start working on keeping our cool or temperance, being cool as a cuke.
Cool as a cuke.
Which means desiring the logos, seeking the logos, and using your reasoning to discover the logos. In other words, being ruled by that, using the reasoning to find the logos. Doing it at all times, of course, justice. There's our 4. So you have to be arranging and receptive to the logos to meet the conditions. So you can draw a line here. The receptive cause is kind of a level below the activity. Now you can engage in the activity. Now that you're desiring and seeking the logos and not just learning it, but nurturing it. Remember the 2 things we can do? Learning and nurture. So not just learning about the logos, but ruling your soul according to it. Therefore, you can engage in the activity of whatever it is that allows you to discover the logos. Reading. So everything we've said so far today about what is involved in reading, that's what we're doing. But not just reading any old slop, reading a text that reflects the logos. So those written by a master of the logos, ideally Socrates or Pierre Grimes. Those are the 2 big ones. That's what we do on this channel. Therefore, I knew that guy that AI on the chat.
The internet is all robots.
It's just a
You have
robot.
severe mental illness, and you need to be fucking checked into an insane asylum.
And needs to be in an insane asylum. Was talking garbage because he said it was a fan. The only people who are a fan of reading are those who are able to participate in their ideal activity, do the best kind of thing we can do, the best activity we can do on Earth, And the only people receptive to that are people who are practicing the virtues. Otherwise, who's going to give a shit about the logos if you think there is no logos, or if you think you know better, or if you think life's about desires, or manipulating people for profit, or seeking fame and honor? You have to be a virtuous soul to begin. So old spam bot.
I hate to have to tell you this. That was fake. That was AI.
It was fake and it was AI.
Kant would say some fucking bullshit.
Fucking bullshit. Saying some bullshit. We know that because he's not going to appreciate the activity. So how can he be a fan unless he's practicing the virtues? Remember, learning and nurture. So we have to be engaged in reading to get the questions and the terms, but we're not going to be able to put them together unless you are functioning in our best kind of way. What do you do in the world? Talk about slop, talk about gossip, clip chimp people so you can find an excuse to inflict suffering upon them as punishment in order to play out your sick roles of your pathologos illness, participate in the barbarian savage nature of humanity. No, you want to become a sage, from savage to sage. You have to spend your time talking and acting and reflecting on what you've been reading. Learning and nurture, or logos and ousia, or parts and whole, or Apollo and Aphrodite. So our greatest functioning in the world is to reflect on what you've been reading. See something, say something, that idea, but this is the proper sense. Only in doing that can you discover the blueprints underlying your reading. You discover that whatever you've been reading has been written by a greater intelligence than yourself, and that intelligence had some sort of map. So you start as the bricks, and as you be receptive to being built upon the activity, you come to realize that these builders are so wonderful because they're following a blueprint, a higher model. And the builder is more intelligent than you. And the model seems to be more intelligent than the builder. So you can even take these causes as hierarchically arranged, dependent on the amount of intelligence or intelligibility or will. So these are hierarchically arranged causes. So only by doing those things, can you discover that there is an inherent intelligibility in reality, because you've discovered it in the text that you've been reading and reflecting on, because you're seeking the logos, because you want to be ruled by the logos, virtue. The name for that pattern of the logos is the dialectic. So that model for this is also the language or the activity of the higher realm, is what we read in the text. So the model for our reading and writing and reflecting and the virtues of our soul is the language of mind. So to have your soul ruled by the logos is to be ruled by the language of mind. Therefore, if there's a language of mind, there has to be a way for us to participate and gain excellence in it. Now you've leveled up. Same 5 causes. The 5th cause, after you've gone through these 4, so there's another level, there's another division you can make. These 3 at the bottom, the bricks being built upon by the builder, are following a higher thing, so a triad and a monad called the model, just as the 3 virtues are co-together, arranged in your 3 parts of your soul, but justice sits above all of them. So too, there's another division because the final cause is much higher. These are the parts that, ideally arranged with the ideal terms, create a greater whole. The more holes, the better.
The primary purpose of Peanut making ice creams, they're secretly turned on by it.
Okay. Emma's turned on by this reflection. That's great.
These absolute dullards, borderline chimps, who want to kiss a fox.
Big boobs, huge,
big boobs.
massive tits.
Okay. So that, for the sake of which, or the new level of functioning, the metaphor, of course, is the parts of your body in the right order, doing the right things, give rise to mind. That allows you to function on a high level, seek goals and that sort of thing. In a similar way, by perfecting our soul through these four causes, we have become a soul pregnant or curious about mind. You can't be curious about participating in mind until you recognize there is such a participation or language called the dialectic. You won't realize the dialectic unless you've been reading and reflecting, because the dialectic is the model that your reading and reflecting was based on. The text is written by the dialectic. You look for the dialectic when you read. You reflect. As you get better and better at reflecting with friends, the more you'll realize there seems to be a structure in how you order your reflection. The better you get in reading, the more you realize there's a structure in how you read and go through the text. That's the dialectic. So the dialectic is the pattern for below. Therefore, if there was a greater intelligence using that as a pattern, you could call it the language of the greater. Now you are a pregnant or curious soul, stung soul, seeking what the heck is this mind that has the language of the dialectic. Now, your soul has told you, hey, let's not chase physical pleasure and physical fame and physical gossip around the physical world. Let's spend my time alive on this planet discovering what the heck the mind is, considering it's the greatest kind of functioning for souls. So much so as it's what virtue is, to be ruled by the logos. So to be the better soul, the best soul, to arrange yourself to give rise to the states of mind of excellence. That's what the virtues are in service of. Requires just reading about the logos and talking about the logos and discovering there's a pattern to the logos. That's the language of mind called the dialectic. Now, that for the sake of which you go through that is to transition as a open, curious soul to mind, to a mind receptive. So we were receptive soul, receptive to rule by the logos. Now, because logos is the language of soul, or language of the virtues. Now the next level is a mind receptive to the rule of the dialectic, because that's the language of mind. Not just be curious, but not just learn the dialectic, but use your mind according to it, which is what we've been doing. So this is kind of the text here. This is what we've been doing on the board in the last couple of weeks, because this is the dialectic: definition, demonstration, division, conclusion. And we're arranging all the other things we've been talking about in the text: cognitive functions, virtues, states of soul, hypotheses of Parmenides, causes, the logos and pathologos, our excellence and our problems. We arrange them according to that same dialectic structure. We are using mind to perfect mind. So when someone said, hey, are these Plato's causes? No, that would be ruled by belief or authority, someone else. We want to be ruled by mind. Doesn't matter who said it, so long as it's true. So, all of those 5 causes of the soul that we are perfecting is our highest functioning in the physical world, what you do in the physical world, your higher sense, but also it's not only the excellence for your soul activity, functioning, and discovering the model in the physical world, it's also the preconditions for being able to participate in mind. But also, it's necessary to go through this because when you have a look at what you can see, shepherd is to sheep, you can infer those same relationships to what you are learning about. King is to his castle, or king is to his subjects. In other words, if we saw that to begin the game is to practice the virtues, which is a soul receptive to rule of the logos, and we discovered that the language of mind is dialectic, the receptive cause we can therefore take from this is the vertical movement through analogies, is not just the soul seeking not just the mind on the level of mind, the receptive cause, the bricks at the level of mind, isn't a mind learning the logos, it's learning and nurture, or to be ruled by. So we take the fact that a soul is ruled by the logos, not your own beliefs and opinions, and we take that principle, apply it to the higher. Therefore, in the realm of mind now, because we've gone through that process, we can recognize what it takes. Now, it's one thing to say, I want to rule my soul according to the logos, according to the truth of reality, the true pattern, because I want to be a well-ordered person. And by the way, when I'm well-ordered, I can function in a higher way, get into those higher states of mind, being in the zone, being acting most appropriately for the situation with the full force of your being, without having to think or plan ahead of time. Well, you're using the full force of your being because each aspect of the soul is being ruled by the one thing, the logos. You don't have to think or plan ahead of time because you know what you will do. Seek the logos in everything you do. And you get into that state of flow because you're doing it at all times. Justice, you're always following the logos in every way. So these are these high states that we seek. By the way, that's in the text as well. That functioning most appropriately, the state of justice. Therefore, this is the kind of learning that affects our state of being. So it's the kind of learning we all seek. We all want this. No one really wants the Aristotelian Christian idea of education that we currently have. Aristotelian because it's in the material world only, teaching us to be slaves for the material benefit of fascists and capitalists. Christian because it's based on belief. The economic theories are garbage, they're lies. And most professors who teach economics know they're teaching lies, but they're paid to by the fucking billionaires. Etc., etc. Psychotherapy is a good one. Beliefs. Garbage. Some guy with his own opinions preaching his belief at the front of the pulpit. It's based on the religious model. Belief. What we actually seek is this. To learn how to read, to learn how to think, to discover the questions ourselves, discover the answers ourselves, and put them into practice ourselves, the activity of reading, the functioning of acting upon that, so it will change our state of mind. Now, ultimately, it results in the best kind of soul, a soul you're so used to being ruled by the logos that you can use that to engage in mind, or to be a mind receptive to the rule of the dialectic. It's a win-win.
Big boobs, huge, massive tits.
Yes. Also, a lovely point, but I meant to press this button.
It's a win-win-win-win-win-win.
It's a win-win.
They're secretly turned on by it.
Yes, and they're secretly turned on by the mind and big, massive boobs. You can be turned on by both. Right?
I think it's awesome.
Great. So all of that is in service for the final cause, or that for the sake of which to upgrade, because this final cause of the lower is the first cause of the greater, of the higher. Now you're at the level of mind, receptive to rule of the dialectic. Or huge, massive toes. Huge, massive toes? What's that mean? Huge message terms of service. Can you not say boobs on Twitch?
Win-win-win-win-win.
It's a win-win-win if you do.
Dumbass.
Dumbass.
Oh, hey, what if we solved all of the basic problems of the world?
What if we did? So, Now we're a mind receptive to be ruled by the dialectic, because we have our soul pregnant with an idea of ourself and wanting to get rid of our false beliefs about self. By the way, most people don't. They think they know the self. That's why I don't have a lot of fans on this channel. They think they know already. The only way you can come to recognize that you fundamentally don't know the self in reality, and all of the bastards along the way who've told you their own bullshit beliefs are stuck in their problems, scammers or ignorant, is if you've been trying to arrange your soul according to the logos. Only that way can you start reading the logos. And only in reading these conversations between Socrates and Jesus, or Socrates and other people, can you discover, holy crap, not only is there an understandability of reality, fuck all people are interested in it, and because they have the opposite belief. And underlying their belief is an image of the self. So they're not seeking the logos, which is a path to know the self. They are repeating their sick beliefs or pathologos to justify the bullshit they were raised in. The cause of man's ignorance, barbarism, savagery, and suffering. You can't discover that unless you're reading. You can't be reading the logos unless you seek to be ruled by the logos. Otherwise, why would you give a shit? And only in discovering that there is a understandability to A, problems, and B, excellence, or A, excellence of self, and B, problems caused by a false belief of self, can you recognize that there is a name for that language and pattern called the dialectic? Now, well, holy fuck, if that's what makes you happy and removes your sadness, if that's what makes you wise and a sage and removes your savagery and injustice, if that's what you need to have a positive reincarnation and not be reincarnated into some sort of fucking torture like we see every day on this planet, then sign me up! Get on that chair where I am the receptive mind, not following what I think, because I've learned that what I think is a reflection of my beliefs and images from childhood. From my parents, who got it from their parents, who got it from their parents, all the way back to the cave. Within a milieu or a greater system of belief called society and religion. In other words, you have to be willing to be led. You can't become a mechanic, a master mechanic, unless you are first an apprentice mechanic at the beginning of your journey, recognizing you don't know shit about engines, but I'm willing to follow my master, the master mechanic. You can't go into, and a week or so ago, there was some famous story in America of some fascist Christian woman who had a fascist Christian mother, repeating her family pathologos way of being, going into I think it was a psychology class without doing any work, without reading any of the text, and saying on her essay, I know better than all the experts because I believe in Jesus, and started crapping on about trans rights instead of answering the question that the master teacher asked her to answer in the way she was supposed to learn how to answer it. And so she got a fail. And then she went to the political party defined by ignorance, the Pathologos party, the Republicans. They're not a political party, they're the Pathologos party. And they called her a champion. The same way they called Rittenhouse a champion for shooting black people. The same way they called Charlie Kirk a champion for trying to propagandize racism and fascism through lying, being paid by billionaires. In other words, you got to realize you don't know the self. Well, you don't. You got to realize that you don't know what your false idea of self is. You think it's you. You don't know how the true nature of self and reality yet. But I'm a mind receptive to be ruled by the dialectic. I am going to answer the questions, not ask the questions. So I get really tempted when people come into the chat and they start asking their own questions. What do you think about this? Or giving their own demands. You shouldn't say that. Hey, fuck you. You're not the... To you, I say...
Dude, suck my dick.
Exactly. You're not the one in charge. You're the ignorant person. You're here to learn. Don't fucking tell me what to do. You answer the questions. I ask the questions. Is the game. Random stranger who all I know from you is a username and a garbage sentence, usually misspelled. Your job is to be curious, to learn. And if you're a sick soul, if you like being a troll, in other words, you delight in injustice, then there's no way you can reach that level. There's no way you can participate. Okay, listening. I wasn't talking about you, I was talking about other weirdos. In order to recognize there is a game called the dialectic through which you perfect your mind simply by telling the truth and being curious. You don't have to bring a mastery to the game, you just have to bring an open, curious mind. And that's how you perfect your mind, by A, the upward movement, the dialectic to reach the truth, and B, the downward purification of what's false, 2 activities. You can only participate in that game if you've heard that there is such a game. You can't play basketball if you haven't heard there's something called basketball. You can't be the best hurler in the world unless you've heard of hurling. I think that's an Irish sport. And you won't discover there is a game unless you're reading the Logos books. You won't learn about the dialectic from Kant. Kant's a little bitch.
Kant's a little fucking bitch.
Exactly. Hooray. Kant's a little bitch. You won't learn the dialectic from him. You won't learn it from Hegel. You won't... Come on, settle down. Calm your tits.
Dude, suck my dick.
I mean... I'm going to find a way where I can actually press the buttons I want, and not just hope that I get the right one. You can't learn this from... Some people think, oh, I like Hegelian dialectic. That ain't the dialectic. That's some guy named Hegel's personal pathologos beliefs projected onto philosophy. He hasn't learned how to read. He's just projecting. But most people do. That's why we read Socrates and Pierre Grimes. They're people who've gone through the dialectic to remove what's false. Midwifery. If you haven't gone through philosophical midwifery, you're just projecting your own garbage. You haven't reached the level of mind yet. So in other words, you can't play the dialectic to perfect your mind, to be ruled by the dialectic, unless you discover there is such a thing, a dialectic, and you won't discover there is such a thing as a dialectic unless you recognize it's the model of the text you've been reading, and you won't realize it's a model of the text you've been reading and so exists as a game you can play unless you've been reflecting on your reading. That's your greatest functioning in the physical world, and you won't be able to reflect on what you're reading unless you're actually reading it. That's the greatest activity you can do in the physical world. And you won't be reading text to discover the Logos unless it's meaningful to you, unless you are a receptive soul, again, receptive to be ruled by the Logos. See, the causal chain necessarily existing as the meaning of life, as causes for our excellence and also conditions for our higher functioning. Isn't that neat? That we can understand that this is it, this is real, and verify it and experience it and benefit from it, and it's not an opinion, it's true. But it's also a true that allows us to gain insight into other things that are true because it follows the paradigm cause of the Logos. I think it's pretty neat.
They're secretly turned on by it.
And I'm secretly turned on by it.
You moron. You absolute...
I'm a
Wait.
real living being.
I'm a real living being. What happened to this button?
I'm always good. And that is what I stand for. Being good all the time.
Being good all the time. I think it's accurate and not perfect. What? What is accurate but not perfect? I have to put this thing back. Hang on a second. This one.
Honey, I will hold your hand while we read together.
What is it? Is it accurate and not perfect? By the way, to be able to judge against what's perfect, you better have an idea of what's perfect. Otherwise, you're just projecting your beliefs. The idea that we must be apprentices first. What's not perfect about that? How can you learn what you don't know unless you're receptive to learning? As a principle, what do you think I'm missing? Because belief is the cosplaying as the master. Our parental figures and religious figures pretend to know shit they don't, and they haven't learnt anything, but they can't actually help anyone. Can't build a computer with religion, you can't do surgery with religion, all you can do is oppress people. I think it's lost in translation, never mind. So, the virtues: seeking the Logos with courage, desiring the Logos and keeping your cool in the ups and downs, to be ruled by the Logos, wisdom, to do it at all times until you can do a flow state, justice, to read the Logos, to reflect on the Logos, discover that there's a language of mind called the dialectic, and now holy shit, there's a game called dialectic, put me on the chair. Now I am a receptive material cause, same 5 causes, to the dialectic. The activity, therefore, is the philosophical dialectic, to be led by the dialectician to reflect on what you've been reading, to gain insight and understanding and insight about what's true about self and reality, upward, anagogic, and to reflect on the blocks, problems, inner criticism, negative states of mind that block you in that movement, philosophical midwifery, A and B, but also to reflect as you go through and are benefiting from your mind being ruled by the dialectic. You are also encouraged by the dialectician to reflect on what you've been through, to recognize that you've been participating in a benefit. And the dialectic that you're being ruled by is caring. And therefore, in being receptive to the rule of the dialectic, you are gaining providence, participating in providence, some sort of divine intelligible care. So there's the activity, A and B, and the reflection, the Logos and the Ousia. Ousia is to reflect on it. That's our greatest activity of mind. As we participate in that, we become the greatest functioning of mind. We become the dialecticians. We are mastering the art of dialectic, which is what we're here to do. The greatest functioning. You could say the meaning of life is to master the art of dialectic, requiring you to do these 5 causes as a precondition, requiring you to participate as a receptive soul in the activity to, there's our triad. The mind receptive to be ruled by the dialectic, the activity of the dialectic, to reach the hyparxis, the highest term, dialectician. In going on this journey of mind, you recognize that there must also be a cause, that this leads you to knowing mind itself, to have the understanding, Logos, and the direct experience, knowledge, Ousia, of mind itself. There's our divine luminosity experience that we saw in the text, Socrates saying, to the extent and depth and frequency you can participate in the divine luminosity of mind, you are participating in intelligence itself. To that extent, you become intelligent and providential yourself. Good heart, good head. That's how you perfect your good-hearted and good-headedness. But as we saw here, the model that was being used in our reading and in the texts was the language of the higher. Therefore, the model or paradigm being used in the dialectic is also the language of the higher. So intelligence itself, wisdom, is the language of the higher realm. Therefore, in going through the dialectic, both in A, perfecting our ability to become a dialectician and know reality, and B, purifying our false functioning and false idea of reality, belief, and reflecting on the fact that this process is what actually benefits us. When we discover that there is a model behind the whole thing that perfects our activity, perfects our functioning. So hang on a second. If that model is the language of the higher, what's the higher game? Just as a soul, if the dialectic is the language of reading, what's the higher game? I want to play the dialectic. If this kind of wisdom of everything, wisdom of mind, is the language of the higher, how do we participate in wisdom of mind in the higher game? Therefore, that for the sake of which you go through the dialectic, just as earlier, a soul receptive to the logos can go through these 5 causes to transition from soul to mind. Your soul says, actually, soul is to be ruled by mind. Now I want to perfect my mind. Now you're a mind receptive to the new game, dialectic, until your mind says, you know what, my mind tells me the higher language of the dialectic is the language of self. Divine luminosity is the language of self. Divine luminosity, the model of the dialectic. Therefore, my mind tells me that I should be ruled by self, just as my soul told me eventually I was to be ruled by mind. So now you're interested in the new game, self. So now you're a self, having gone through the dialectic to perfect your understanding of self and reality and purify what's false about self and reality, benefit from it. I want to participate in what's the highest kind of game of self. Now I am a self receptive to rule by the what is. By the way, we're still reading. In reading, Socrates has directed us to reflect on our dreams. That's the question. So Plato, Damascius, Dionysius did well, except they fell down when they reached the level of dreams. They weren't able to reach that higher level. In the text we've been reading, that the fact that our reflection on dreams is that there's a profound intelligence. It knows all about yourself and your life and your problems and your highest purpose. It knows all about the self and your many reincarnations and your life, but also has a mastery of the dialectic that extends greater than the dialectician, because the dialectician makes use of your reading in philosophy and makes use of the blocks that come up, organizes them and arranges them and asks questions according to that arrangement for your own reflection and seeing, so you can benefit. But a much higher level is that which creates reality, to give you the problems that you can reflect on in a way that gives you the problems, your suffering, your stuck, your issues, and provides the problems in a fantastically profound way that if you reflect on the problems with the language of the dialectic, ideally with the dialectician helping you, you can solve the problem too. It's like a great Christopher Nolan movie. It gives you the puzzle and what you need to solve it all in one. That kind of artistic brilliant creation is a higher level than our ideal functioning of mind, which seeks to understand the intelligibility of self and reality and the intelligibility of our problems that play out in our daily lives, our relationships, our thoughts, our distractions, our fantasies, our blocks. But after, with enough participation in the dialectic, we can see that dreams take your life dramas, your spiritual dramas, your inner critic dramas, your block dramas, your fantasy dramas, takes all of them and creates a universe that brings them all together in a profound way, that even if you only remember a few words, or you only remember a few images, or only remember a few states of mind, it is so profound that whatever you remember about your dream, so long as you reflect on it in the language of the dialectic, remember the dialectic is the language of self, can you get the problem that you don't even realize you have and the solution that you don't even realize you need. Therefore, only by going through this process of a mind being receptive to the dialectic to participate in the activity of the dialectic with a dialectician, do you have the conditions needed to see the profundity of your own dreams. Therefore, it's very unlikely that most people will see the significance of their own guru who's communicating to them every single time they sleep. Or so long as they sleep for more than like 20 minutes. Every night. Many times a night. You get like 4 or 5, I think, on average. 4 or 5 dreams a night, their whole life. It's like a third of our life that we are blind to. That's the highest level of blind spot or ignorance. Our own dreams, our own dream maker. So, this game of the dialectic to perfect your mind by being ruled by the dialectic itself is also, you could say this is the meaning of life, to master our functioning as the dialectician and to have our mind ruled by it. But you could also say, well, in another way, it's the preconditions for an even higher functioning self. So as our reading perfects our soul to be open to mind, as the dialectic perfects our mind to be open to self, we will only, just as you can only be open to the dialectic if you've read about the dialectic, you can only be open to dreams if you've been doing the dialectic, because only if you've been doing the dialectic, you'll have what you need to recognize you have to be watching ESPN to realize there's such a thing called basketball. Now you can play basketball. You have to be playing basketball. Only if you've been playing basketball can you recognize Michael Jordan is the best basketball player. If you've never played basketball or never heard about basketball, there is no way in hell Michael Jordan, even if you're sitting next to him at work every day, you won't recognize his brilliance. And you should be getting him to coach you. That's the dream maker. Only it's not basketball, it's the literal game we're all here to play, the human game, the meaning of life. And it's not, you're not being coached by Michael Jordan to be a great basketball player. You're being coached by the ideal self to know, not just know the self, but to show the self, to know and show the self. To have the model of self and the activity of self. To know the self and have the art of self. The literal highest meaning of life, therefore. But you won't recognize the greatest dialectician unless you've been in the game of the dialectic. You won't recognize the game of dialectic unless you've been reading the Logos text. And you won't be interested in reading the Logos text unless you're a soul seeking virtue. That's why the true fans of this channel are the best fans ever.
I'm too pure.
And they're too pure.
Honey, I will hold your hand.
While we read together.
And we hold our hands while we read together. So, the ultimate, so you could say, there are 5 fundamental answers or causes to answer what's the meaning of life, or what's our purpose. Your purpose as a material cause, the activity, the functioning you're here to perfect, and the model that you're here to discover about that, and that for the sake of which you go through it. But there are 3, the lesser, the greater, and ultimate stages of that development, which, as we've been saying, the building blocks of understanding that we've been discovering as we've been reading. The selfers, there are pairs, whole and part, same and different, like and unlike. There are ones, justice, beauty, goodness, the things we seek, goodnesses we seek. The pairs are what we bring together in understanding. But there's also, remember, our belly seeks our goodness, our reasoning seeks to understand into a oneness, and our heart, the outward moving, seeks truth. But to say that there's something is true, you can say there's something false. And to make a statement, say, oh, that statement is true, means you need a principle. So you need, the false would be the lesser, the thing that's true is the greater, and the principle of truth would be true itself. Or lesser, greater, ultimate. So Diotima is the ultimate, Socrates is the greater, we are the lesser, is an example. So for a mean analogy, or for learning or development, which follows the mean analogy, you need the principle of lesser, greater, ultimate, which is also the activity we engage in. The receptive soul, or the receptive mind, is the lesser. The activity of going through the dialectic is the greater, and the ultimate is the dialectician who's mastered the whole thing. The lesser is the soul receptive to be ruling by the logos. The greater is the activity of reading, and the ultimate is to think, talk, and act, or see through what you've been reading. To function through your reading, to talk about your reading, to reflect with friends over coffee about your reading. And say to your friends,
honey, I will hold your hand while we read together.
We will read together even, which is the channel, by the way. I sneezed. Bless me.
Bless you. Excuse you. Bless you.
So, lesser, greater, ultimate. Also, these classes, lesser, the soul, the greater, the mind, the ultimate, self. Therefore, that which knows all about yourself, such that it can give you dreams that represent within a drama and states of mind, and a master of analogy, a master of drama, a master movie maker, give you what you need for yourself based on the stage of development of yourself towards your ultimate purpose, to know the self, to know and show the self. Remember, we've gone through every single stage requires learning a functioning. By going through the reading, you learn how to see through and function through your reading. Going through the dialectic, you learn how to function as a dialectician. It's not just knowing yourself, or having the model would be the knowing all at once, but having the functioning. So there's our model or paradigm. As a state of mind is called knowing, or nous, the whole, and it's functioning through the parts, dianoia, or understanding, knowing and understanding. Knowing and understanding together is wisdom. So now we've defined what wisdom is with the causes. It's the paradigmatic cause and the instrumental or functioning cause of mind itself. That's what wisdom is. If someone says, philosophy, is that about arguing your opinions? Like saying "can't's a bitch."
Disgusting. I'm so disgusted.
So disgusted. No, that would be actually philosophy. Like saying I like Kant and I like Hegel and I'm going to use it to justify my capitalist beliefs or my Christian beliefs or my imperialist beliefs or my Jewish beliefs or my Zionist beliefs. Nope, that's not philosophy. That's what everyone on the YouTube thinks and everyone at the universities thinks philosophy is. That's slop. And to that we say...
Wrong. You're so wrong.
So
but
wrong.
that's okay. We're all allowed to be wrong sometimes.
You're allowed to be wrong so long as you go into the game of waking up. That's what we do here. Because philosophy is actually... You say, well, they're not, the reason why they're not doing philosophy is they're interested in opinions. And the definition of philosophy, philos sophia, means love of wisdom. And the definition of wisdom is the model or paradigmatic cause of mind that's not experienced in the physical world, but experienced as divine luminosity, along with the functioning or instrumental cause of mind too. Nous and dianoia, knowing and understanding with capital letters. Unless you have been going through these preconditions of the soul to participate in as a receptive cause in the activity of the dialectic, you won't find wisdom. You won't be doing philosophy. You have to be a mind receptive to rule of the dialectic, to be engaged in the dialectic, to therefore become the dialectician and know the model. And it's the functioning and model that's wisdom. If you're not doing this, you're not doing philosophy. By definition. And you won't reach this unless you have the word logos. Because if you're seeking the logos as a soul, you won't understand what virtue is. And if you don't understand what virtue is, you won't get into the text to read about the logos. And if you're not reading about the logos, you won't be able to see through the logos, talk about the logos, act upon the logos. And if you're not doing that, you won't discover that what you've been doing or what you've been perfecting is the dialectic. Stoicism is what mainstream philosophy is. They stay here. They use the language of wisdom and courage because it sounds good, makes them sound smart, but they don't read the logos, they don't reflect on it, they don't discover the dialectic, they don't therefore get into the real dialectic, they don't do midwifery and philosophy, they don't become a master dialectician, they don't therefore experience directly the nature of reality with understanding as ousia and logos of mind, and therefore they don't get into the purpose of philosophy, dream analysis. They don't know any of that. Garbage. That's where we are as a race, but that's okay because it's okay to be wrong. Because now we can learn and have fun. That's what we do here. Hooray.
Some people would chase a chimp around. Some people would devote themselves to all kind of science or art or experimentation. Who knows?
Who knows? Well, we know. Now you know.
I'm going to get you. I'm going to find you.
What?
And I'm going to get you.
Don't do that, please.
What the hell's wrong with you people? You sick freaks.
Sick freak. So, having gone through that, we can therefore recognize the highest use of the dialectic or the language of mind is from that which knows the self and is able to create the universes. So not just do the dialectic, but create the material for the dialectic, the dream maker, creating a universe every time we sleep. Many universes every time we sleep, reflecting everything we need to know about the self. Therefore, just as the lesser meaning of life is to engage and reflect on the reading that we do, the greater meaning of life is to master the art of dialectic, to become a master dialectician. The ultimate meaning of life is to become a dream analysis dialectician or midwife. The ultimate meaning of life for human beings is to master the art of dream analysis, which you won't do unless you have reached the material cause, receptive cause. You're a self, receptive to not live your life the way you think you should, or based on the shit that your parents told you, and your religion told you, and your culture told you, and the YouTube algorithm told you. Nope. I'm following as a self what the dream maker tells me about myself and what I should be doing. Takes a lot of courage. A good thing we've been practicing it since the beginning. Only if you are doing that will you be receptive to participate in dream analysis. And remember, that's the logos or activity, but you also have to be doing the ousia, reflecting on the model. So dream analysis activity involves the dream analysis itself and a reflection on the dream maker. Because if you're reflecting on the dream maker, you can realize that you are participating in true care. This is the highest kind, or the model of caring. It's also the highest kind of intelligibility and use of intelligibility, use of wisdom, use of intellect. Therefore, in that activity, only as a self receptive to be ruled by the dream maker, only in that activity can you discover the principle of providence. And in that activity, you can become like the midwife who's been midwifing you in the dream analysis. Therefore, the greatest functioning of self and providence and the use of mind or dialectic is the dream midwife. So that would be the art we are here to master as the meaning of life, the ultimate meaning of life for humans. And in doing that, in mastering that, you become open and receptive to the model for knowing and caring for the self. The inherent ousia and logos or intelligibility of self, just as the dialectic was the model of the dialectic was the logos and ousia, the knowing and understanding of mind, divine luminosity, the penultimate spiritual experience, the ultimate spiritual experience, that which transcends and is the cause of even divine luminosity. Knowing the self. Therefore, you can say the meaning of life is this triad: to participate and perfect the art of providence, which is both caring and intelligibility. So to participate in and perfect the art of providence through dream analysis, in order to know the self, which is the model of that. And by the way, remember, we have all four causes, and once you have all of that, you have the functioning of providence, you have the model, knowing the self. Remember, we want to both know and show the self. There's our knowing and showing. To know the self and function through. There's our model or ousia and its activity or logos. Both all at once is the ousia and logos of the model. Playing it out, functioning through it, seeing through it, having integrated it as the midwife, the dream analysis midwife, means it's the kind of education we all crave, that which changes our way of being, our way of seeing in the world, our way of functioning, our state of mind. So, to show the self, to know the self, through participating in the dialectic as a self receptive to being ruled by the dream maker, doing dream analysis. By the way, if you're lucky enough to have a partner who has a good heart and good head, technically you dream every time you sleep. So you could be doing this every single day. Imagine that use of life, that use of intelligence. Sounds like fun. So, to perfect the art of caring or providence, caring and good heart and good head, caring and intelligibility, perfect the art of providence, which is the method. Therefore, dream analysis, if you want to know the self, it seems from the map that the method is The Art of Providence. Dream analysis. Just as we learned the dialectic from these authors who are writing stories that apply universally, it's the dream maker who crafts not just one book, but 5 books a night, personally directed to you. Much higher level of providence. But remember, we have that line, we have the 4 causes and then the higher cause. When you have all 4 of those together, all in their ideal forms, hierarchically arranged in a proper way, coming together as a whole, it gives rise to a new level of functioning. Remember, that's the principle of the parts giving rise to a whole. Having the blueprints, builders, building, and bricks allows for, at the end of the game, Billy living. So Billy having a family and going to work and having parties at his house. That's a high level of functioning than bricks, building, blueprints. So too, from the text, we got the idea of, therefore, the greatest activity is to participate in dream analysis and perfect that art, resulting in the greatest knowing or wisdom, or a higher kind of wisdom than wisdom. By the way, in the Phaedo, Socrates says this development is called love of learning, philomethesis. This development of the dialectic, the art of the because he says the dialectic is the skill and art of philosophy. So this movement is philosophia, philosophy. So philomethesis, love of learning, you have to be reading to learn, culminates, upgrades, levels up into philosophy. Now, the reason I'm talking about that is because he uses a strange word to talk about what philosophy upgrades into. He calls it philophronesis, love of the state of self, which is a puzzle. What the heck is that? Well, we seem to be getting closer to that, answering that question. Because this wisdom of the self is phronesis, which is, by the way, also what he calls the true virtue. So all of these virtues are in order to eventually trade them in, like trading in gold coins for the real thing you want. The true virtue, the virtue that doesn't change, the virtue that you can have as yourself forever, phronesis. So, knowing that paradigm, having the ousia and understanding, ousia and logos of self, we could use the Greek word phronesis. That's a higher kind of wisdom. So what's that for the sake of which we have the phronesis of self and the mastery of the art of providence? Well, the book said, let's read it. So what's our question? What's the ultimate purpose? Remember, there's a lesser purpose, there's a greater purpose, and there's an ultimate purpose. The purpose, of course, is that for the sake of which, or the first and final cause. The purpose of soul is to be curious, open, receptive, or aporia, stung about mind. The purpose of mind is to be curious about self. The purpose of self is to that for the sake of which is our question. So the ultimate purpose. Let's see it in the text. That's not the right one. Here we go. Page 131. Man as a whole. Let's read the whole thing. When death arrives, all those who are capable of this kind of learning that we've been laying out, take what has been learned and nurture. There's our two, learning and nurture, the only thing we can do really. Learning, nurture, understanding and experience, the activity and the applying it as the instrumental. the Usia and the Logos and Usia. See, it's always those pairs. It's always those pairs. Whatever's been learned whatever been learned and what has been nurtured into them, they take with them into their next life. Whatever is yet to be learned and realized becomes what has to be returned to in another life. Returning to ignorance and having to cross your fingers that you discover a stream like this again, and cross your fingers that you're in an okay place and you're receptive enough to learning. Otherwise, ignorance and suffering is your lot. Man as a whole, and the idea of cross your fingers is, why not do it here now? Because what's the chances you come across a philosopher and you're open and receptive, and you're not living a life of slavery so you can actually get into the reading? And what's the odds that you're going to meet someone with such a good heart and good head you can play this game with every day if you want? The ideal relationship, as Diotima told to Socrates, love and logos. In other words, don't give up.
You're a wizard, Harry.
Because you're a wizard, Harry. So here we are. This is what we're after. Man as a whole is part of this struggle to know thyself. The ultimate paradigmatic cause of man. It is a cosmic dance of meaning. The dance between the receptive material and the leader. Someone's leading the dance. In the activity, there's our triad, our ultimate triad. The triad of mind and the triad of reading for soul. That's the cosmic dance. The ultimate dance is these three. Receptive to rule from the dream master, the activity of dream analysis, and being led in the dance by the dream analysis midwife. Man as a whole is part of the struggle to know the self, and it is a cosmic dance of meaning that ends when there is nothing left to learn. And, what's that? The end cause? Final cause, the first and final. And that for the sake of which you know the self as the paradigm. Wisdom of phronesis, wisdom of self. Learn how to do the dance as in dream analysis. That for the sake of which is the end. Man as a whole is part of the struggle to know thyself. It is a cosmic dance of meaning that ends when there is nothing left to learn. Ooh, you've covered what? Soul, mind, and self. And the race of man ends in a state. There's our state we want. We want to be in a state where we can function providentially, know the self, together as a state. Both the model or usia and the functioning or logos. Both the model and activity. Both the learning and nurture of self. As a state. So our ultimate cause, our ultimate purpose, final cause is a state. A state no longer of man, but that to which he has joined himself. So we are to join with something beyond man. So far what we have greater kinds of men like Pierre Grimes and Socrates, through which we can learn to read and discover the dialectic and even learn the dialectic. But all that is to lead into a participation in a greater intelligence, greater than any man, the dream maker. Therefore, what's the stage beyond man that we are to join with? The unicity of intellect, or the ideal model and functioning of mind strives for union with the one itself. So there's our joining with something beyond even mind. Okay. I forgot the keyword I'm supposed to search for. It's not join. All right, here are some clues as to what we might be joining with as the ultimate purpose. Talking about the intelligible is the logos. When we discover this, our vulgar misconceptions drop away, revealing our pure philosophy of the mind. The dynamic goes forth while remaining unmoved, yet extending to all those capable of receiving its beneficial goodness. What is something else that remains the same while extending a providence? Not to everyone, but only benefiting those who participate in the activity as the ideal receptive cause. Dreams, maybe? By the way, this is that weird part where Jesus says, hey, by the way, it's like we're sharing stories. We're like old men sharing stories from our youth. So why is it, right after he's talked about there's something extending through the logos, dialectic, a providential beneficial goodness to everyone received by those capable of receiving it, why did he go from that to stories? Is there anything which extends the ultimate providence only to those capable and participating in what makes you able to receive it, that remains the same but shares stories to do so? Sounds like the Dream Maker. So there's someone who stands above all other men in terms of learning, whose visions awoke sleeping minds of the many. Sleep, you say? Why is he using the idea of awakening sleeping minds and stories, talking about something which extends providence while remaining itself? Curious. Okay. I think it might be this one. So remember, what's our aim? What's the ultimate purpose of man and us? The art. What's an art? A skill that's used for a skill that has a model that can be used on subjects for their benefit. Therefore, by reflecting on these causes, a knowable model, a skill, a functioning of that model through understanding in some sort of beneficial activity in order to benefit not the person doing the medicine, but the patient. Therefore, understanding these four causes gives us an understanding of the idea of art. And notice, the Dream Maker does this dialectic, but with the most profound wisdom of self, so that the dreams meet you where you're at, able to communicate from a much higher level of wisdom and understanding, but communicating it in a way that people can listen to. It's a drama. People like to be entertained. That was in the book too. The many can only be entertained and not taught the mysteries. The many seek to be entertained and not taught. Couple times. Therefore, the dream maker is a much greater dialectician because, in an entertaining, engaging way, referring to characters in a story of drama, but relevant to where you're at and what you're ready to see, that's every single dream you've ever had. So a much more charming or graceful, or the art of charm or grace, to use the art in a way that is more able to be received by those curious. So not just understanding and knowing, but a way of presenting it. Very high level of art. Turning the skill into an art. So, what's the highest use of, way of relating to souls? Through the highest functioning of the dialectic, to reach the highest model of mind and self ultimately, to therefore have the functioning or art of providence with the model or wisdom of self, phronesis of self. What's that for the sake of which? The art behind the ability to surface an unsuspected problem is a spiritual knowledge that benefits and nurtures the soul. Oh, there's our receptive souls. We call the maker of dreams the dream maker. Okay, nice. After we bring to light these profound dreams, we often burn an incense in honor of the maker of the dreams. So we get the activity and we reflect on the dream maker. It's from these kinds of reflections that we can say we are part of a caring and intelligible cosmos, providence, that we participate in through our ultimate activity and purpose, dream analysis, and can become in union with. Remember, to unify with, the race of man ends when we are no longer of man, but that to which we have joined ourselves. Therefore, from the text and from learning to read in this curious way without interpretation, while also sewing together the pieces, putting the threads together and sewing it together as a whole, applying ourselves, this is reading. A video game isn't a movie. You play, you have to solve the puzzle. You have to go back to that earlier part of the mansion where that medallion was and then bring it back to where you're at, and maybe you passed a helicopter. You passed a gem on the way, but it had no significance to you yet. But then later on in the game, you'll see, you need to collect gems for some other thing. So you go back and you bring that back. It didn't have a significance then, but now it does. You can learn about reading from video games. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win.
So if you have a love of video games, maybe you have a kind of soul, the best kind, that can be open to reading in this real kind of way. True learning, or philodainoia, love of understanding. It's an active thing. You are nurturing as well as learning. You're raising your mind to meet the mind of the author. In reading. In the dialectic, you're raising your mind to meet the mind of mind itself. And in dream analysis, you're raising yourself to meet the state of self. Or the state of man ends when he's no longer of man, but that he has joined himself. Therefore, from the text and from this learning of reading, being ruled by the Logos as souls and being ruled by the dialectic as minds, we have discovered. No, I say that because we're reading, we're not projecting. In other words, we're being ruled by the Logos as souls. The way we weave together the pieces of the puzzle together like a video game is to apply the dialectic structure. So our minds in the reading have been ruled by the dialectic. All of that is in service to discovering our highest purpose or meaning of life. Ultimate purpose is to similarly be ruled by the dream maker in the art of dream analysis to perfect our greatest functioning purpose, the art of dream analysis, which is how we participate in the providence or caring and intelligibility of reality. It's also the spiritual purpose to know the method to know the self. Therefore, as we've been saying all through the text, the dialectic has these two functions: downward to purify our beliefs, but upward to perfect our understanding, which results in how do we perfect the activity? By referring on the model. How do you perfect skateboarding? Watch lots of Tony Hawk and Rodney Mullen. Therefore, the dialectic's upward purpose or nature is literally the spiritual method. Doesn't have, we can demystify spirituality. It isn't Buddhist and Taoist, and it's not no belief. Don't believe Buddha or the Tao or any of that shit or any religion. No. It's just perfecting your mind by being receptive to the dialectic, participating in the dialectic, purifying your false beliefs. The upward is the perfection to the model. That's the penultimate spiritual experience of divine luminosity. So too, in dream analysis, you're purifying your false ideas of self in the activity and perfecting. So this is our question: how do we know the self? Dream analysis. It's the use of the dialectic related to the self being ruled by the dream maker, which seems to be the thing we unify as a result. So we participate in providence with these three in the activity of dream analysis, becoming a midwife ourselves. The upward or spiritual purpose of that is to awaken or prepare ourselves to know the self, the highest kind of wisdom. And all of these things together, both your functioning and the knowing or model, and being able to apply it to benefit, is all that for the sake of which to unify self with the dream maker, says the text. Therefore, we seek to unify with what was it? The ultimate purpose ends when we are joining with something beyond even a man, and that is to the dream art. Here's something interesting. The dream maker must have an intimate knowledge of the problems the dreamer faces, even when the dreamer is not aware of the kind of problem they are facing. So what can I say about that is that the maker of dreams far excels the intelligence of the dreamer, even one who's doing the dialectic. What I find intriguing is the beauty of the simplicity of the dream's messages. It condenses so much in a few sentences with just a few images. It is the very insightful and beautiful way Dreammaker fashions the dreams. So here we are talking about the even higher than the dialectic is those who use the dialectic but can also craft it in a way that's receptive to people meeting them where they're at in the best kind of a way. But another mark of this high form of intelligence is to be able to craft insight. There's our order, Apollo, understanding, but in a simple sentence or a few simple sentences or an image or a metaphor. That's brilliant. If you've ever met or come across someone who is able to function in that way, it's amazing. It's the beauty of soul and mind, the beauty of self. It's amazing. It hits you, it Like when a beautiful body walks down the street, it just hits you all at once. You can't help but notice it. Ideally, you want to speak up about it. When someone is able to use the skill of understanding the dialectic, and not just that, but craft it in a beautifully simple way, that's also meaningful and relevant to what's being talked about, or relevant to the souls there, is the highest kind of beauty of self. Reflecting the highest kind of beauty, intelligence, and providence of the dream maker, which is, of course, likely the highest functioning of self. Insightful and beautiful. Meaningful, rational, understandable, addressing the problem that you're facing, that you might not even know that's the problem. The dream maker does. I'm going to tell you about the problem. I'm going to communicate it into a way that's going to make you interested. You're not going to lose interest. You're going to pay attention. You're not going to walk out of this film. I might use a language that's fun, or images that you're interested in. And I'm going to convey that meaningful understanding. Sometimes I can bring it all together into a sentence or two. And for those who have a mind and self open to seeing it, it's the most beautiful thing in the world. It's amazing. That kind of love, that kind of appreciation with beauty. What's love? To want to join with that which is most beautiful and good. This description of the beauty and goodness of the self and mind of the dream maker would therefore be a fine definition for the highest kind of love. Therefore, our love directs us to ultimately the highest kind of providence and beauty, desiring us to participate in and become in union with. It's that. We love that kind of self and mind and functioning of the dream maker. Profound, meaningful, creative, often just a simple summaries, simple definitions, profoundly beautiful, also meeting people where they're at. Highest kind of functioning of self, mind, the highest kind of beauty that you can see as a human being. That you won't recognize unless you have met the conditions. You seek to become a better soul, to be open and curious. You're interested in reading. You're interested in talking about what you've been learning about. You're interested in the mind now. You're interested in perfecting your understanding, perfecting the model of understanding, perfecting how to reason well. But also you want to engage with other people so that maybe you can practice using your mind through the map of understanding or dialectic to help people remove their problems, and develop further understanding themselves. Using your love of understanding to benefit. That's formally the dialectic, which transitions into a desire to know the self by being receptive to a kind of similar kind of thing that can function most beautifully and artfully, create stories and metaphors, summarize it in simple ways, but also engaging and interesting and meaningful. Our desire to go through, therefore, dream analysis to become the highest use of the dialectic, to ultimately know the true nature of self and bring that knowledge and functioning together to unify with the highest kind of beauty, that of self. Highest kind of functioning, that of self. to know and show the self in the highest state. The man, the journey of men and the cosmic dance of meaning to know the self ends in that state no longer of man, but that to which we have joined. When we reflect on dreams and the dream maker in this way, we can realize we are part of a caring and intelligible cosmos, providential cosmos, so that we can realize we can participate in, through dream analysis, and become in union with the ultimate cause, the dream maker. Isn't that amazing? Said it in a different way today, but bringing together the work. I think it was like a 5-hour stream yesterday. Now here I am talking about the beauty of the highest kind of intelligence of self to present the reasoning in a simple way, but it still took me 2 hours to say it. Hey, better than the 5 hours yesterday. It took the 5 hours of work yesterday to be able to say it in 2 hours today. And it took the, 5 days of streams before that to get to the point where we had the material. We had enough of the map and the material and the metaphors and the different sets of terms. It took like 5 days of that reflection to be able to do yesterday's 5-hour stream and put it all together to have this map. And it took that 5-hour stream to be able to say it, to bring it all together and communicate it in a more streamlined way in our 2-hour stream today. And it took 5 months of reading before that to lead to the 5 days of review, to lead to the 5 hours of yesterday, to lead to the 2 hours of today. And we're still 4/5 of the way through the text. Fuck me. Here's the thing. We won't be satisfied until we do it. Pay attention to our dreams. Record them as soon as you wake up into audio. They have AI voice transcriptions now. You don't... Back in the day, you used to listen to the audio and type it up and then rewind and type it up because you don't type as fast as you hear. But now you can get AI do it. That's awesome. That's a new development in the game. I mean, another development is the cell phone, so you can record it on your phone. Wake up, press record. Oh, I remember a duck. The duck was wearing pants. The duck says, "You can never be a ballet dancer." I remember feeling annoyed. That's all I remember. That's enough. The beauty, the artistry, the simplicity. To condense with the images perfectly appropriate. Interesting. You were interested in the duck. You never walk out of a dream like you would a movie. So, big development, cell phones to record. Big development in the last year or so, decent audio to text transcriptions. Try it out. You won't be able to try it out unless you're receptive to becoming a better soul. To be focused on and ruled by the Logos. You won't see the profundity unless you've been learning about the dialectic and you're receptive to the dialectic. But if you are, you've met the condition causes. Try it today, try it tomorrow. You'll have several dreams tonight. Practice. And see if this pans out. Therefore, you'll be meeting the meaning of life, the ultimate receptive material cause, being a self receptive to the rule of the dream maker. You'll be participating in the literally greatest activity a human being can function in, by definition, it seems, but you can verify that by yourself. You can only verify it yourself. Dream analysis. To become the greatest sort of human functioner, the most charming or graceful, man or woman, artistically artisan use of art, interesting and engaging, but also providential, good heart, good head, caring and intelligent, kind of functioning that a human being can be. So you could say, well, our purpose is to master the art of dream analysis. You can find it and test it for yourself. You have to. I mean, there's no other way of verifying it. Which means also doing it yourself, so you know what it feels like to go through it, what it feels like to be certain that you know what the dream is about, but then realize you're wrong the whole time, to realize what's hard to hear and what's easy to hear. For instance, your first interpretation of the dream might reflect your problem, but it might be confusing to hear that straight away, or you might take it as an insult. So that as you become a dream midwife yourself, you might see things but say, I'm going to hold back on that until they're more mature in the game. This thing, you know, you can get more better at like honing in. What am I going to focus on? What am I going to ignore? What's the dream saying is most significant? Or maybe there's a spiritual significance, but there's an urgency that the dream is pointing to. That was all this, the transition from skill into art. You can try it, you can do it. And ultimately, in your dreams, do you have states of not divine luminosity, high states, but clear and pure states of self that maybe you won't recognize because it's not fireworks? You might not recognize it or pay attention to it, but through dream analysis and your development of the dialectic, your reading and your midwifery, through dream analysis, you are learning to recognize that these high states of clarity or purity is the wisdom or phronesis of self, which contains everything that follows beneath it, contains in a more pure form the divine luminosity of mind as its cause. Because, as we have on the board, Venn diagram, the self creates the shadow or of mind, or the sun creates the sunlight, which then creates the cosmos. Therefore, the dialectic use of mind is what functions in our physical cosmos, purifying our false beliefs and perfecting our understanding and reading. But that divine luminosity of the dialectic is still the shadow or overflow of self. So it is contained in a more immediate or pure or clear, a whole. Remember these Venn diagrams, a whole of parts? It's the whole that doesn't even have parts. Immediate, pure, clear. You may be experiencing that in your dreams, but only by going through these three sets of causes can you recognize the states of wisdom. Can you perfect your ideal functioning in the greatest dance of dream analysis? And then meet all of the conditions to raise to a higher level of being, union with or joining with the dream maker as the greatest knowing and showing of self. By the way, one of the puzzles in the text is what is described by Parmenides in the first hypothesis seems to be the logos or wisdom of self. Socrates says there's a stage beyond. So while we can call this the first hypothesis, the divine luminosity paradigm of the dialectic is the second hypothesis. It's functioning through reading and understanding. So the model cause of this is the third. The fourth hypothesis is belief, which is in opposition to all of those. And the fifth is even less. It's there is no such thing. That's our strict dualism. But the first, second, and third hypothesis seems to match the model of the ultimate self, the penultimate mind, and the soul. Well, the text says, hey, but there might be a hypothesis beyond the first, says Socrates in the text. So let's see if we can find it. 10th hypothesis. Fourth, it's going to be hard to find. The hypothesis of the one self in the Parmenides. Okay, it's going to be hard to find it. I don't know what the keyword would be to search for. So there we are. We have a likely hypothesis from our reading as a soul, doing our intended function as a soul, piecing it together, doing our through the dialectic patterns and system structure, our intended function of mind. We have discovered the intended function, or the highest functioning of self, is to unify with the Dream Master through the activity of dream analysis, allowing for the knowing of the self and the art of providence together as the state of self, unifying with the dream maker. It's likely a hypothesis, but remember, it's learning and nurture that we are here to do. Meaning, unless you try it, you won't know it. Unless you practice it, you won't get there. So,
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
You're a wizard, Harry.
best of luck. If you have followed along to this point, there's a good chance you'll have a dream tonight. And if this has sparked your curiosity, there's a good chance you'll record it as soon as you wake up, before you even go to the bathroom. And there's a good chance you might even use my secret hack, TurboScribe or something like that, to get the computer to transcribe it. Save you half an hour to an hour of typing it up. And there might be a chance that you take everything you've learned about the dialectic in our review and reflection over the last few weeks, all of this structure we have on the board, 5 causes, or the 4 parts of the dialectic, and that for the sake of which we do the dialectic, and find the use of metaphors, jumping across the positive and the negative, analogy, drop the terms and look at the relationships, relevance, apply it to what's happening in your everyday world, states of mind, are they positive states of mind, are they negative states of mind, what we've seen about how it unfolds in our life. In other words, our problems arise from a false idea of self that we don't know, we're here to discover, causing a state of mind or way of being. Does your dream have states of mind? From that state of mind, you'll function in a role, instrumental cause, negative version. Do you have a role? Look for the high or low states in your states of mind. And so look at the high or low states of mind, look for them in your dream. Now look, do you have, if that's the paradigm, what's your instrumental? What's your role? How do you function in the dream, that state of mind? What's the activity that unfolds? What's the drama that unfolds when you play out that role from that state of mind? How does it end? Conclusion. Does it end in a failure? Does it end in openness and curiosity? Does it end in closed-mindedness? Do you end confirming whatever idea you have about yourself anyway? Self-fulfilling prophecy. Does it end in a failure? Or does it end in a success? Could that success follow a drama where you're playing a role from a high state of mind? That might be an insight into the true self. So states of mind, look for them. How do they play out downward? And what does it imply about the self? Either the false idea of self, if it's a failure or a problem or a negative state of mind, or the true self you're here to discover, if it's a high state of mind or a clear state of mind, hard to see because there's no fireworks, but remember, we've been looking for that one, resulting in a success. So try it. Remember, you don't have to be at the end. Your job is to be a self-receptive to be ruled. You're not supposed to know. You're just supposed to have the courage to be receptive. And the mind seeking to learn the dialectic in the highest activity by learning about the dialectic by trying to apply it to your dreams. That's all. Be a receptive soul, seeking to see through the dialectic as a self-responsive, receptive to be gaining rulership or instruction or guidance from your guru, your dream maker, which might actually be what you end up joining with as the meaning of life, or the ultimate first and final cause, or that for the sake of which. It's just a hypothesis, not just. It's a decent, pretty fucking awesome hypothesis from the book that bangs the hardest. But again, learning and nurture. It won't mean anything until you get there. Try it out. Have fun. And if you're lucky enough to have a friend in your life with whom you can practice this game, you can move even faster. And if you have that sort of person in your life, I tip my coffee cup to you and I say cheers. May all your coffee conversations be within those 15 sets of causes that we've talked about today. A lot of fun? I think so. I think next time we'll continue reading. Maybe we can break down the summary to from, was it 5 hours to 2 hours? It's like 2 hours to half an hour next time. Maybe we'll just go straight into the reading. Who knows? Cliffhanger. I hope to see you there. Thank you so much for joining me. If you want to join the Discord, there's a link. If you want to donate to the channel, there's a link as well. That's greatly appreciated. If you want the text, there's a PDF below. And I'll see you in the next one.